Okay, so hey everybody, how's it going? This is Sunday, so this is the Grateful to Know God's broadcast. I get confused of what show I'm doing and when now. The Today I've got Dr. Ben with me, an awesome guest. How you doing, Dr. Ben?
Doing all right. This weekend's been a little chaotic, but we're here.
Yeah,
We're hanging in
yeah.
there.
You, Many of you have probably seen Dr. Ben over at the line, and and I love your stuff on the line. I honestly, I would get frustrated trying to do a call-in show like every show being a call-in show. That would be
Mhm.
stressful to me. But uh, the I started watching your content on your channel, and so much more fun.
Oh yeah,
um,
for sure.
Yeah, and that kind of brought it all together for me because I was like, okay, I see. So he's got like he goes over on the line and does the show there and everything, and deals with dipshits all the time and all that, and then whenever you're on your channel, you get to have some fun, and we've played games over there, and you have quite the sense of humor and stuff. So yeah, um, I've got. You're linked in the description and stuff, but there it is for everybody to see on screen. Go over and check out Dr. Ben's channel. Good stuff. So you just recently, like in the last couple year or two, maybe, actually became a doctor, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 2023, spring of 2023, so almost 2 years ago.
Okay, awesome. And what kind of doctoring do you do, Ben?
Um, it's a little complicated at the moment. So I did my intern year in family medicine, hated it. So I'm switching routes. So I'm kind of in between specialties, but working basically as a GP for the military because uh, I owe them some time. So they're keeping me doing whatever I need to do. So just primary care for a field unit at this point, and then gonna be hopefully, well, I will be reapplying to residency. It just depending on what happens with the whole military situation, whether that will be military or civilian. So
Yeah.
hopefully still military, but we'll see.
Do I mean, I know that a lot of civilian doctors work for the VA, but do people like serving for the military work in the VA also, or is that just
Well, no, they're contractors.
okay? Okay, yeah. I wasn't sure about how that goes. I know a lot of the doctors at the VA have like past military experience and stuff,
Mhm.
but yeah. Anyway, so today Dr. Ben's going to solve all my health problems for me. I'm kidding. We're not going to do that. uh, but that's really cool. We run into so many around here anyway. Run into so many doctors fake degrees and such. Uh,
Mhm.
Talking to creationists and things all the time. You get the likes of Dr. Kent Hovind and such.
Yeah.
Which is I hate to even use that term. Kent Hovind is not a doctor of any sort, not of any discipline. Um, so don't refer to Kent Hovind as a doctor. It was a joke. But
Yeah, he is a degree mill diploma.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
his I think it's funny because his like what he calls his dissertation is like he in book form, and it's riddled with spelling errors and grammar errors, and just really bad. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Dr. Ben is a real doctor.
Yeah,
uh,
I did a lot of work for that. So, and I still got more to go. So it's, yeah,
my
people don't understand how much of a process it is and how long it is to
Yeah,
go through.
my sister is a nurse practitioner, and which isn't even like it isn't even. I mean, she's a step down from that, but like the the work in between there and becoming a doctor is like twice what she's already done.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's crazy.
went into addiction medicine, and she was one of the first nurse pracs in the country to get a DEA number where she could write like narcotics for addiction medicine and stuff.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
she does. She ran a Suboxone clinic in Las Vegas for a long time. She's back here now though. The but yeah, so my family has been in the medical field. All of them except for me were in the medical field, and so um, none of them are doctors. So good job, and I commend you on the hard work that took. I know that was probably a lot. Uh,
Yeah. And sorry for the neighbor dog. They sometimes that neighbor dog just gets a little too excited.
oh well, yeah, it's no big deal, man. The Around here, yeah, you never know what you're gonna hear. The we can't control that stuff. It's not a problem. Uh, so anyway, how long have you been YouTubing, Doctor Ben?
Oof. It's been a long time. Well, not as long as some people, but I think I first started the end of my second year of med school, which would have been in 2020. So I guess it's about almost 5 years now.
Awesome, awesome, yeah, yeah. I mean, I first I first came across you on the Transatlantic Call-In show, and the uh, I really from the first time I watched you on there though, I really liked just your calm, factual approach to things. Like you're just and you tend to. I mean, I know because of. I mean, you bring facts and stuff to whatever conversation. That's. I mean, whenever you're those call-in shows, that's kind of the thing, right? But I like that your approach is kind of like, well, have you thought about this? You know, like have you thought about this thing? And you you're so patient with people that I wouldn't have any patience with. um,
Oh, I've yelled at my fair share of people. I do some yelling from time to time,
I mean,
but
I think that's inevitable, though, right? I mean, like even the most calm person would eventually like because it's open to anybody, and sometimes some of the folks that call in a place or whatever are kind of hard to deal with.
and
I did.
I try not to like yell just for the sake of yelling, but if somebody is compromising somebody else's safety, if they're being an asshole to other people, if they're being disrespectful, then that is where I feel like it is appropriate to be angry and a little bit more aggressive with them. If they're like trying to have a good conversation, then I try not to, but usually I try to reserve the yelling for if they actually deserve it. I do think there are people that deserve it. But for those reasons, like I said, like the people that are being disrespectful or saying really harmful things.
No, I agree with you, and that's really been uh, that's really been kind of my experience too. Is a lot of times people give me a hard time because I'm too nice to people, and if because I have a different view on like indoctrination and stuff. A lot of people will go on, like some of the religious claims and stuff are they'll say, well, that's irrational, and they're irrational beliefs and silly beliefs and this and that, and I agree with that, but I don't think it always makes the person irrational because indoctrination is a thing, and you know people are a lot of times just following in the footsteps of the culture they were raised in. And so I have a lot of patience for that kind of thing. But whenever I realize that somebody's either one being like harmful to the people in the community that I care about, or uh, being completely a dishonest asshole, like whenever it gets to that, a lot of times I'll shift gears and change my behavior a little bit. But uh, Ember with a $2 super chat. What you got going on beyond med to atheist stuff?
Yeah. So the whole reason I got into the online atheist space, number one, I was watching the shows um a lot longer than like I started doing things. I was in people's side chats, and especially the trans conversation. Well, there are two conversations that really got me in. The trans conversation was a big one because I saw a lot of the discussion happening. But as somebody like who was a medical student at the time, I had an angle that a lot of other people didn't. And the first thing was embryology, being able to address the biological sex question, because I could explain exactly how a fetus is formed, how those features develop. And so it was primarily to be like lecture content about embryology, and then some things about like biostats, epidemiology, like how to interpret studies, but also like just key scientific information that was missing from the conversation. Um, and then kind of the other conversation was at the time that I was starting to get into things. COVID, of course, was kicking off. And so a lot of the call-in shows were getting COVID calls, and they couldn't take them because they couldn't risk misinformation on their shows. And
Sure.
so the first time I ever ended up on a call-in show, it's funny because I was invited by two different shows around the same time. Um, and it was after Faithless Forum. I went on. I met a bunch of people. I primarily went to because I wanted to see Neil in person. I wanted to see some other friends of mine in person, and so I went there and kind of networked around a little bit. And um, it turns out like I was saying to people like, "Hey, I'd be willing to help take some of these COVID calls that you're all getting. You're gonna keep getting them, and I can handle them." And so that kind of opened the door a little bit. Uh, is actually Ethan that first invited me onto the perspective. Like he was the first official invite, but the show was scheduled out a little bit. And the first actual show, like the first actual call-in show I ended up doing was the hang up with Matt Dillahunty. So it was kind of intimidating, like the first ever call-in show. But you know, you get that invite, wasn't going to turn it down. So, and apparently, well, I was so nervous because I was worried that it wasn't a good show or I didn't leave a good impression. And then, sure enough, a lot of people came out of the woodworks asking me to go on shows. So it just kind of stemmed from there. But yeah, it was the trans conversation and the COVID conversation that kind of got me from watching to making my own show.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's rough. And I never thought of it that way. But yeah, even if you're meaning well and trying not to spread any kind of misinformation, it's kind of risky to take calls and stuff on issues like that without accidentally, saying something wrong and getting in a bunch of trouble with YouTube over it, because they were out to
Mhm.
get people on that one.
Oh yeah, and everything was so new. All the information was like it was science at a realistic, like live pace,
Yeah.
and it was a lot easier for me to get access to that information because I was a student learning about it at the same time. So as information was coming out, I had the access to the most up to date information. So that ended up being really helpful. So I mean, the stars aligned and
Yeah.
and everything happened.
Well, great question, Amber. Thanks for the $2 super chat. The yeah. See, like I did some call-in shows for, like I set up the whole call-in thing, and I had some trouble with it because I was using StreamYard at the time, and it does not want to let you do that kind of stuff. I could do it now through here, I'm pretty sure, without much issue. But the I did some call-in shows and stuff myself, and was that was going to be a thing for a while. And after I did it for, I don't know, I think like a month or so, I was like, it's not the right time to get into that. The channel's not big enough and doesn't have the following for that to really support itself. And so I'm going to hold off, and maybe we'll come back to that later. And because I really wanted, any ways to engage with people who wanted to talk. Like, I'm not so much about, I'm not out looking for arguments with people necessarily, like that's not really what drives me to do what I do. Um, I kind of, at a certain point, that's how I started for sure. I was like, I'm going to go argue with some Christians. But the at some point I kind of turned around and was like, you know what, I don't need to talk to them. Like, what's the point? It's the same conversation, same arguments over and over and over. And I understand why that's helpful to some people and stuff, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But like, I would much rather have people from the atheist community, or things that the atheist community is interested in, and talk to those people. And I say atheist community. Some people take issue with that term, but I think that I don't think that that's necessarily one thing. So, but um, yeah, yeah. So whenever I see other people who do call-in shows regularly, or have a lot of experience with call-in shows, I always kind of think, wow, that's kind of tough, because I realize just in my limited experience some of the not so great people that I encountered. Um, but I've had like death threats and everything doing this. Uh, it's been it, no hate like
Yeah, it's
Christian
intense.
love, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So did you end up getting a lot of those COVID questions? Were there like a lot of people that called to ask you stuff?
Yeah, there were some, and there were also those people that would use, like, they'd have an argument about ivermectin, or they'd wanna talk about, like, the COVID vaccine, and they'd like, there's a lot of interesting claims people, drew between all of that. A lot of Christianity and anti-medicine perspectives kinda go hand in hand, so, um yeah, you always get some interesting things like that where, like, COVID's a sign of the end times or whatever, and, like, the vaccine is the mark of the beast and all this stuff. Like, I feel like everything is the mark of the beast at some point. Like, they haven't consistently come together and said what that looks like. I've heard various different things. Like, every new thing is the mark of the beast, and I
Yeah.
just don't know at this point. Might as well
Any
just collect them all, like, just be sure about getting the right one, like
whatever has people's attention at that time, unless it's like what they're into. One of the things I said is like, you guys go on about the mark of the beast and people being the antichrist and everything else. Why haven't you applied that to Donald Trump? Like you
Mhm.
would think that because of his, I mean, not just his actions, definitely his actions though, but not just his actions and words, but his obvious lack of interest in religious things, and bumbling all that whenever he's been asked questions about it and stuff. um, I was always like, they'll call everything the mark of the beast and evil and the antichrist and all that stuff, but if they like it, it's they made him essentially the Messiah, the orange Messiah. And such a weird thing that they do. But again, like, I mean, I was young Earth creationist variety Christian for like 25 years. So, um, I, and I even look at it now and I'm like, I don't understand why they're this way, but whatever. Uh, Hi, Mikey. So, what have you got anything big you're working on? Are you just kind of still just doing the shows and um, I mean, is there anything different coming up that you got going?
Um, Not really. I've been kind of I mean, I've done a few shows last week. Like I was on Maya's show last week, and last week was kind of a busier week. So this week's a bit more chill. I'm trying to take more breaks than I have in the past. Just mental health is important, and you don't have to be on the internet all the time, and especially right now with how toxic the internet is at the moment. I'm like, I'm prioritizing things in real life, people like in person with me. So it's been a lot healthier to do it that way, and to like have the internet as a thing I can do when I feel up for it. But the internet's not real life. So to people that feel like you have to be on the internet all the time, you don't. Like you
Well,
really don't.
no, and you're right, and I've had to consider that several times too myself. The um, Leading up to the election, I was doing a political show every week with Robin Webster, and we, as you can imagine, a lot of the stuff leading up to that were like stressful, not easy conversations all the time and stuff. And a lot of people were so emotionally charged and things that after the election occurred, we were both just like, okay, we'll come back to this. But let's step away for a little while and let things, see how things go and let people calm down a little bit and uh, get our bearings here from the shock of things, and then we'll go back at it and get back into it. And I mean, both of us felt that way at the exact same time and stepped away from it, which I think was the right thing to do, honestly. But yeah, so I understand that it's it gets you're right. It's not real life, but it gets very stressful at times. Especially you get when you're doing it all the time, you get caught up in these little dramatic YouTube things and other people's stuff, and you get pulled into taking sides and on things that I mean, some things you should definitely take sides on, but you get pulled into stupid things sometimes, and that's why. Again, that's why whenever I came across your personal channel, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! Dr. Ben's over here having fun and goofing off and stuff, and you're really funny." And so it was great to see that. And after I'd watched a few times and stuff. I said, "Hey, Steph, don't you do some call screening or something? What, will you send a message for me?" And yeah, so that's why I wanted to talk to you though, is because I really just enjoyed your content and stuff, and I figured if I did, that other people would too. So why not have you come talk to me or whatever? And it's always good to make new friends and stuff in this space.
Oh,
If I
yeah,
can.
I appreciate all of that, and I appreciate you reaching out and having me on.
Yeah, yeah. The anytime that I can have, like, I do a lot of stuff where I try to find like channels and people that a lot of people may not know about, but at the same time too, I want to have people that are recognized, like that they do know about, because I feel like I try to have conversations a little different than what maybe like the regular thing. I
Mhm.
mean, it's very obvious that this is very laid back, and I just kind of wing this as I go. Like, there's no. I had a few things, checked in my mind, like, yeah, I want to make sure I ask about what's going on and being a doctor and all that stuff. But at the same time, it's like I just want to hang out with people and talk a little bit and talk to them, because I tried to do that with Christians at first. And my big thing was, look, please don't come and bring me your arguments or like poke holes in evolution and all that stuff. Like, if we're going to have that conversation, I want to talk about what you believe and why, like why you believe it, not all these arguments and things. I don't want to hear your bastardization of philosophy and all that stuff. Like, let's just have a normal conversation, me and you. And they're on YouTube anyway, and the people, especially the ones that I came across on X when I was there at the time. Uh, I'm no longer on that side, but the the people that I talked to were just not capable of doing that. And I've I make stuff addressing the claims of especially creationists, because that's what I was raised in. But I really don't care if I ever have any of them on the show or anything. Like, I don't it doesn't matter to me. That's not I think I can do it without them. Kent Hovind's been saying the same shit for 30 years. It's not if I want to argue with Kent Hovind, all I got to do is pull up his seminar and argue with him. Um, so I don't know, a little bit different than a lot of stuff out there, I guess. But at the same time, I think that we get confused, we get lost in this, like, this is what I'm supposed to do in the atheist
Mm-hmm.
part of YouTube. Like, I'm supposed to argue with Christians, and I'm supposed to have debates, and I'm supposed to do these things, like get mad with people and all this and that. And I don't think that that's true. And I think
Oh,
that a lot
yeah,
of people get caught up in that.
for sure. And that's something that, like, I get on a soapbox a little bit about call-in shows and stuff too, because it's like there are a lot of ways to like be a community and to have a show in the space. And it kind of bothers me when people think that they have to copy what everyone else is doing, because then you're just having multiple people all doing the same thing, and we don't need everyone doing the same thing. And like what we need is for some people to do different things, and in fact, like, most people should be doing their own unique thing, like find the thing that you want to do, because like it's just going to get too saturated with call-in shows, and not everyone wants to talk on a call-in show. Like, the majority of people don't want to talk that way. Like, that's a show. Like, it's a show to get attention. It's a way to get like some of the conflict, some of the anger out, to spark some smaller conversations. But the majority of people want to have conversations like this one. Most people want to build community. They want to talk about a niche set of issues, and like, you don't have to do the same thing, and it's better if we don't. And so that's just something that always bothers me. It's like, you don't have to debate. And that was something too that got me more into, like, even into the call-in space, was the fact that everyone felt like they had to be a philosopher. Like, no, you don't. You really don't. And
Yeah.
there are certain topics where philosophers are annoying as fuck, and you don't like, I hate talking science with philosophers because they don't get the point.
No.
The point of science is not to overly define everything and be pedantic about it. The purpose of science is utility and application into real world problem solving. Like, the point is to solve the problem, not to define the term into oblivion. So there are a lot of times where I just get very, very frustrated with philosophy. And but everyone thinks they have to be like skilled at formal logic, feel like they have to be a philosopher. No, you do not. And so I wanted to step in and, like, no, I'm a physician. I mean, I was a student at the time, but like, I'm scientifically trained. My approach is different than what other people are going to do, and your approach is different than what other people are going to do. We don't all need to copy each other. to have a good show and to have a good community. And in fact, like, I want more people to like find what makes, like, if they want to start a channel, like, absolutely do it, but like, don't just copy somebody else's channel. Like, come
Yeah.
up with something unique, come up with something that you can specifically bring to the table. And it could even be like, my Twitch channel is just community building. Like, there's no atheist content at all. It's just hang out, play trivia. We've got a new channel up now on Twitch it's just cooking. It's just cooking content. There's no atheism, no like religion talk, no political talk. It's just humans being human. I'm like, I'm gonna cook today. Here's what I'm cooking. We'll chat while we do it. And so whatever it is that you do, that you want to share with people, the community has use for it, and people will join you. So
Yeah. I'll have to check that out over on Twitch. I hadn't came across that yet. I'll check that out though for sure.
yeah, it's brand new. Well, the my trivia stuff isn't new, but the cooking stuff is brand new. We're getting that kind of going,
Yeah.
built up.
Yeah, no, I knew you were doing a game night thing, and we used to do back a long time ago. We do not well. I don't guess it's been that long ago. Several months back though, we used to do trivia night over here. Um, but it was incredibly like just literally just looking stuff up and asking questions. Like it wasn't there was no production quality to it whatsoever. But so yeah, no, and I agree with I think we're in a lot of agreement on that, and probably a lot more than you realize right off the bat. But my one of the things that I've talked a lot about is I was a drug addict for well, I am a drug addict, but I've been clean for like 10 years. But um, I was addicted to heroin and in a bad spot for much of my life, and have been to prison and a lot of different experiences, within. And I've been right here in Eastern Kentucky pretty much my entire life, which is a unique perspective to a lot of people on talking about any number of things. So a lot of times I'll go a long time, and I mean, other than like doing interviews and stuff with people within our community, like whenever it's just me talking about stuff, I'll talk about my experiences with drugs and my experiences living in Eastern Kentucky and what a culture shock it is to get out in the rest of the world and meet people. The So yeah, and I agree with you completely. There's so many people want to just they think there's this checklist of the things. Well, I've got to go debate Kent Hovind, and I've got to I've got to go be on a call-in show, and that's how they measure success within this area of YouTube. And I think that if more people would realize that you, that those things are fine, and there's people that do it well. There's people out there that do debates and do philosophy and do it really well and do a good job, and those channels are great. But you're right, it doesn't not everybody has to flock to that one thing that somebody has a little bit of success in. Like there's so much more we can do, and so many of us claim, like, and I say claim, but I'm not saying they're being dishonest, but the humanist perspective. But at the same time, what really are you like? That doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that they think that, but in practice, it's not always apparent, right? And so, yeah, we're in a lot more agreement on that than you knew going into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've been on here bitching about not popular positions any number of times, and that's my thing. Whenever I first started doing this, that's what I was. That's what I thought too, right? Because I started out and I was like, "Hey, I want to debate Christians about this stuff, and I'm going to win debates." And uh, I contacted Modern Day Debates back before um, all the Matt Dillahunty things happened, and I went and I debated T-Rock about something, the geologic column or some shit that I'm not an expert in, and felt like I did good or whatever. And I don't mind to, like, for the fun of doing it. Like, it's fun to do research and talk about science and all that stuff. Like, there is a fun part to doing those things that I enjoy, but it wasn't. That's first of all not my personality and not who I am, and second, there's any number of people that do that better than me. So so it and realizing that, I felt like was kind of important. But I can talk about my experiences and my perspective on those things, given some of the stuff that I've been through that maybe other people haven't or don't know about or whatever. And I feel like that it's taken a long time for me to kind of figure out that part of my YouTube identity, I guess. But um, it's been well worth it, and it's a lot more rewarding when I make stuff that people like. That's me rather than just the same old thing that's already been done better by other people. Um, I can go argue about Noah's Ark, but I'm never going to make a better series of videos than Aaron Raw did on the subject. I mean, like, so um, a more natural let it go where it goes, and talk about the things you want to talk about. It doesn't have to be about God and Christianity. Even though it's an atheist channel, I don't have to come on here and like try to disprove God every day of the week. That's not necessary. The atheist community already exists. I don't have to convince anyone. So yeah, I love that you said those things. Good stuff. The the philosophy thing you mentioned too. Like, do you feel like? Because I feel like that and I'm sure there's more options than this, but I feel like it's always one of two things with those conversations. The
Mhm.
person is either like trying to talk over you, like talk down to you with they
Yeah.
try to get into these complex philosophical things that nobody understands what the hell they're talking about, rather than just use normal words,
Oh
and
yeah.
or it's completely dishonest, and they don't know what they're talking about at all. It seems like it's one of those two things normally.
Yeah, yeah, oftentimes for sure. It's people wanting to sound smart, and so they'll try to confuse you with philosophy when confusing somebody doesn't disprove their argument. It just ruins the conversation because now you're not talking to each other, you're talking down to somebody. And granted, there are times that I will put somebody's back to the wall and I will use science in a more condescending way. But there's a reason I do it in that way. But like a good teacher is going to be able to communicate effectively in a way that reaches that audience. Like if you're teaching a 5th grade class, you're not going to use the same language to describe something as in a college level class. Like if you're teaching a kid about photosynthesis, like I think all of us have learned that plants use light to make energy, or like plants eat sunlight. Like we've heard those simplified explanations, and like
Yeah.
is it entirely like the most nuanced level of detail? No, it's not. But that's what the kindergartner is going to understand about how plants get energy. They're going to understand that. And you're not going to go into a kindergarten classroom and start spouting like a biology textbook at them, because it's not going to make
But
sense. They're not going to learn it. And so you
right,
have to
and it's
tailor your
obvious when you
conversation
do
to your
that too.
audience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
and
people don't.
that's really
Yeah.
that's where that for me is always weird, because it's obvious when you're doing something like that. I remember Dave Warnock, one of the last few shows he did, taking a call from somebody who came on throwing around all these big philosophical terms and stuff, and Dave, I've been a big fan of Dave's for a number of years, but the he I seen him just kind of smiling, sitting there, and he started laughing. He said, "You know what?" He said, what are you doing? He's like, you're just coming on here and just throwing around these big words and stuff. He said, I don't even know what none of that shit means, and I don't care. he's like
Yeah.
he's like, do you want to talk to me about why you think this thing and answer the question I asked? Or do you want to just go on running your mouth trying to look smart? And well, he didn't say it quite that way, but um, and that was really eye opening about those kind of things for me, because it's like, yeah, like what is the deal? Like, I love when the philosophy people, I call them philosophy, but I like whenever they try to tell me what atheism is, and like what I think, what that I have to somehow defend not believing your claim of God exists, like this burden shifting thing that they do.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, okay, it's fine that you think that. I'm not going to do that, but like, I don't, I think I don't agree with you, and this is why I don't agree with you. I'll tell you that. But like, if you're trying to make this into this formal argument about, well, that's not good philosophy. Yeah, well, I didn't claim to be a philosopher. You did.
Yeah, it's the times that I will use a more condescending approach are for when either people are mansplaining to me about the science that they are not trained in, or they assert that they are an expert, or they use a poor scientific argument to hurt other people. Especially like with trans arguments, you have people who don't know the science, who are making conclusions about human rights based on bad science. And so that's when I will put people in their place, because, well, if you're going to, like, whether directly or indirectly put yourself in a position of expertise in a field, I'm going to hold you to the standard of that expert. Like, I'm going to hold
Right.
you to the same standard I would hold any of my colleagues. And if you can't meet that standard, you cannot assert that you are an expert. And I think a lot of people think that you get a free pass to being believed when you assert expertise, but that's not true. I expect
Mhm.
less out of people who don't claim that. Like, if somebody honestly comes to the discussion and says, "Hey, I'm learning. I don't know all these things, but here's what I understand about it. Can you help me out?" It's a way different discussion, because I don't expect them I'm not going to hold them up to the same level. And so you have less responsibility. You're able to be wrong more frequently and get away with it, because you're not expected to know. You're also not you're not making decisions for other people based on the presumption that you are an expert. Like, it's
Yeah.
way lower stakes to a non-expert being wrong when they're willing to learn. um, but if someone is claiming to be an expert and they are trying to make decisions, that's very high level responsibility, and they need to take accountability for that thing that
Yeah.
they're saying. And so I'm going to hold you to that standard. It's not a
There's a
free pass to say whatever you want. Like, if I get anything wrong, I am 100% accountable for that, and I take responsibility for whoever I've hurt for it. And
Yeah.
people don't understand the
Yeah.
concept of responsibility with expertise.
Yeah. There's a big difference in telling me what you think about something, or what you believe about something even, and being an authority on something. That's if you claim to be an authority on something, I'm going to be way more critical of the things you say than you telling me, oh, I think this. You come and tell me that one of the just a recent example of somebody that I talked to. I put out my contact thing, and I tell people, like, I'll have anyone who wants to have an honest conversation about any subject. I'm open to doing it. Like you, whatever you want to talk about, as long as you can have an honest conversation, I'll talk to you about it. And this creationist guy wanted to come, and he immediately, the first words out of his mouth were Mary Schweitzer, and I was like, he started telling me what Mary Schweitzer, what conclusion it was, and all this other stuff. And I was like, well, I've got this recording of Mary Schweitzer saying you're wrong. So, like, that's the source you're using, and you're claiming that this is what all that science means. You're not in a position to do that, first of all. But like, your own source disagrees with you. So yeah, that kind of thing there, where it's like, if that's the game you want to play, we'll play that game. But yeah, no, I agree with you on that stuff too. And I I preface a lot of stuff whenever I talk about science and stuff, because I mean, it's been something that I've had an interest in and studied a lot, but I don't pretend to be an expert in anything, and I always make sure to point that out. Like, this is my understanding of it. Like, don't anybody listen to what I say. I'm just telling you, like, I'm just a dude from Kentucky talking about stuff here. This isn't. I'm not trying to tell you what you should think or have to believe or any of that stuff. I'm just telling you my interpretation of the stuff that I've looked at. And I think people fail at that a lot. They think that they've watched a couple YouTube videos about something, and all of a sudden they get to go tell everybody else what what they what they should think, which is the bigger problem. In fact, last night we had this over on Dave at Captive Desk, his channel. We do this Saturday night at the Atheists thing, where we watch a little video or something about, usually smaller channels and stuff, some apologetic stuff they put out. And it's not, I mean, yeah, we talk about the stuff that debunks it or whatever, but it's more of a, like, have fun and joke around with it kind of thing. And this guy starts out with, I'm a professor and I'm teaching everyone apologetics, and this is my first course on it and stuff. And I was like, I'm going to be really critical of this guy, because he's claiming that he's the authority on this. Like, he's the expert teaching people how to do apologetics or whatever. So I'm going to be critical of the definitions and things he uses, whereas I wouldn't do that with the average person. So
Mhm.
I think that that's really important to do it that way. And, it's so many people want to be, uh, especially, like, they have some political view, or even like religious view. They're not capable of the thing they're talking about. First of all, they're not capable of having an unbiased conversation about it, which is really important if you're actually talking about what's true and that stuff. But they're not capable of approaching it that way to begin with. And I think that that's really apparent early with a lot of people. But that goes back to the same thing, though. Like, and I'm guilty of this too, of fooled getting drug into a conversation where I don't need to be, right? like like
Mhm.
arguing something that is beside the point. One of the things I've said is, like, these apologetics channels and stuff that poke holes, and don't poke holes. They pretend they're poking holes in evolution or radiometric dating or something like that. And it's like, you get caught up arguing the wrong point with them, whenever it's like, well, wait a minute, I'll give you evolution's horse shit. Okay, fine. So let's go back to the part where you made that claim that I should believe this thing you believe. Let's talk about that. Um, we get we get hung up in these conversations because, again, talking about evolution is a lot of fun. I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy having conversations about scientific things. And I enjoy doing research about those subjects, like preparing to talk to some particular person or whatever. I enjoy that. But don't get don't get hoodwinked into the conversation where you've set it up to where what they're actually doing is, if I can poke holes in this thing, then the default answer is whatever position I haven't defended.
Mhm.
Uh, is kind of what happens, and I don't think that's helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
But like I said on the other stuff too, I think there's people that do that well, like having, if we all have the same perspective and the same way of talking about things, then what use is any of that? Like the having multiple perspectives and multiple disciplines, and having people that are experts along with people who just want to have meaningful conversations. All of those things are more valuable individually. Are more valuable to work together in their individual areas than to all try and attempt to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like it's so, but yeah, I've upset a lot of people. Even people that agree with me on any number of things, talking about like, like why do you want to go argue with idiots and stuff, like that their agenda like isn't what you think it is. Like, and I tell people, like, I won't tell. A lot of people will say, well, you shouldn't talk to Kent Hovind. You shouldn't go talk to him. And I get that point of view. Like, I understand why people shouldn't talk to. I have no desire to talk to Kent Hovind, but um, the at the same time, though, if you're going to talk to Kent Hovind, because he'll talk to you. I mean, like, if you're going to go do it, then consider this little bit of stuff first. Like, think about not what your view is of it and what all the people that agree with you, how they see it. Think about how the people who don't agree with you see the conversation that you're having. And if you're doing something to help, that at the end of the day, that channel is going to use to reinforce the harmful ideas that they're spreading anyway, then what good are you doing by doing that? Like, what really is? And I get that, like, people don't always think about it that way. Like, it's not a attack against anybody that does those things. I think that people like Atheist Junior does a great job dealing with Kent Hovind. I think that I think that there's a number of experts that have talked to Kent Hovind that do a great job, talking with him, and that those conversations are like Grayson, for example, does a great job with Kent Hovind. Completely destroys him every time. But it's if you think that going into that conversation is, I'm just going to go talk about evolution, then you're entering the wrong conversation, because that's not what the point of it is. Um, you've already screwed up, and I try to get that across to people, but sometimes they think I'm just being an asshole. I guess I don't know, which maybe I am. I'll accept both. Um, did you have fun over at Maya's?
I did, yeah. It was they picked a video that was infuriating, of course, but that's kind of the whole point. It was funny. It was a funny thing to go through. It was nice to not have something super translate related or anything super intense. It was like bad medical science, but
Yeah.
um it was just it was fun to have kind of like a silly reaction video to to whatever that nonsense was. I had a good time.
Well, that's why I love Maya's show, is because it's not about taking yourself too seriously. It's like, let's
Yeah.
let's just have fun watching this thing and talking about it and interacting with the chat is amazing over there, and it's a lot of fun. Maya and I actually have this thing. It's not on purpose, but like our last like 3, 4, 5 guests, um, we've scheduled the same people like within a week of each other. Like, I didn't know that you were going to be on there when I asked you to come talk to me. Um, I didn't, and going back like 3 or 4 guests, it's been that way. Like, somebody will be on here and the next week they're on there. And it's like Maya and I have had a lot of the same guests recently, which is really weird, but I promise that none of that is planned or worked out or even known of in advance. The, so one of the things too, like you mentioned there, like it wasn't just about like the trans activism issues and stuff. I think that I think that too often, um, a lot of people like, because all right, so the atheist community, like the LGBTQ community is a huge part of that because they're excluded by religion in so many cases, and worse. But I think that all too often we're like, oh, let's have our trans friends come just talk about trans things like all the time, and or let's that's the only thing we ever want to talk about, with people in the LGBTQ community. And I'm guilty of that too, or at least in the past. Like, like I always wanted to like, oh, can you come answer some questions and talk about this and that, which is a fine thing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with asking questions, but like it's easy to not especially whenever you get into somebody who's really knowledgeable about something. It's not always like done in a shitty way.
Mhm.
Like you forget that there's so many more aspects to that person than just that one thing that they can talk
Mhm.
about. And that's why I do the show the way that I do. Like I don't, I respect that whatever thing that people like to talk about and whatever, thing they're out there doing is great and whatever. But like at the same time, that doesn't really, that it's almost like asking like, we talked about some of the medical stuff, but like I don't want to sit and walk through your day-to-day job either.
Mhm.
Like, there's so many more ways to know things about people than to get hung up on that. So
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't want to, I don't know. I
I
like
appreciate
to,
it.
yeah, it's and again, like I'm a big fan of the Transatlantic Call-In Show. I watch it quite often, and a big fan of many of the hosts over there, and many of the people that work behind the scenes and stuff. Like, I think it's one of the um, woefully underwatched shows on the line. But the um, I mean, that's I'm not trying how to put this. That that is the best place for those conversations, right? Like here is the place in the show where if you have questions or want to watch, just people interact about this issue, like here it is. There's the place for it. Like
Right,
so
exactly. It's like
yeah,
we've set our time to do those conversations. Like, I don't want everybody asking me that stuff in real life. Like, I just want to be a person. Like, I'm just a person. And
yeah,
like, it's exhausting to talk about those things all the time. Like, here's some time I've set ahead. If you want to ask, that's when you ask, because that's when I've said it's appropriate for you to ask me there. But I think people of any minority group are like, we're in agreement that there's a lot of risk for tokenizing people. And like, for example, if you have somebody on a show, like Seth Andrews is a great example. You have him on a show and everyone wants to talk to him about his, like, a new book of his, or what talks he's doing, like his accomplishments. They talk to white men about their accomplishments and who they are as people, like in what they do. And then any minority, they're like, hey, can you defend your existence for me on this show? Or, hey, can we just ask you what it's like to be a minority person? Like, okay, but I have accomplishments too. Like, why can't I just talk about the things that like I've spent decades studying? Like, I've
yeah,
done a full decade of like secondary education, like post-secondary education, and I have like 6 more years left of training before I'm like done. Um like, I've got some things to offer besides being your little puppet to get you more views because LGBTQ plus issues are a hot button topic and you get clickbait. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not that for you. Like, stop doing that to us.
Yeah.
So I appreciate people that are, going different routes and treating us as people. Like that's how you should handle it. Like, I think a lot of those topics about minority issues, like, you need consent from the other person to bring that up.
Yeah.
Because when it's our everyday life, I don't want to think about everything I'm worrying about all the time. I don't want to think about the future of this country every single day.
Right.
Like, let me process that stuff on my own. And if you really want to have a conversation, like, ask, like, hey, would you be interested in doing something? But, like, be aware that they very well may say no, and they're allowed to say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it doesn't mean they're any less of an advocate. It's just their life is an ode to you to boost your channel, so you get an LGBTQ person on the show.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
also, like, controversial opinion here. And this may be a bit spicy, but I think you don't have to have shows about minorities on your channel. Like, you don't have to do it. And in fact, sometimes doing it is worse, because if you're not well equipped to talk about those things, if you're not setting it up in the right way, if you as a channel owner are not in that particular minority and you're just asking people to come be your puppets and say the things you want, like, that's not them leading the conversation. That kind of comes
Yeah.
across to a lot of us as wanting to use us to boost your channel, or
Yeah.
wanting to use us to make a point. And, like, no, I want, like, let the minorities lead their fight. Everyone else should come, like, beside us and help us out, but let us tell you what we need to do. And, like, go out there and, like, if you're well equipped to say things, like, Forrest Valkai is not queer, but he has a lot to add on the subject because he has expertise in biology. So he adds his education to that. But don't have LGBTQ plus shows just for the sake of diversity. Do it if you can do it well, but
Yeah.
otherwise, just don't do it. It's like, I think people are a lot more able to understand, like, if you make it about racial issues, because people know, like, I think most white content creators know, like, hey, it's not my damn business having a show about black rights. Like, that's, like, people know that's overstepping. People don't really get that extends to other minority populations as well. And so, like, the transpositions is in the side chat, and like, they're a channel that is helping to lead the way in terms of trans rights. Like, let our channels be the focus. Like, direct people to us, direct people to our spaces that we've set up.
Yeah.
And if you want to have a trans person on your channel, or, like, if you want to have somebody from a minority on your channel, this, like, what you're doing here today is probably the best way to do it. Like, hey, let's bring you on and we'll showcase you, like, we'll platform you to drive the discussion, and you can, like, essentially use that to bring people over to your content. And, like, that's kind of the best way to do it. It's like, promoting trans led conversation, like, is probably the best way to go.
Well, I I think that, like, I like to let conversations just kind of go where they go, like,
Mm.
I'm not I don't have any kind of motive whenever I, like, uh, invite anyone on to talk. Like,
Mm.
now a lot of times I get people, again, I'll say, like, you can email me and I'll talk to anybody or whatever. Now, a lot of times those kind of shows, but that's them asking to talk to me about that subject, right? Like, so
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a
And
different thing.
that's something too that, like, a lot of people have had these shows about, well, I just want to learn about this thing. Well, you don't need it to be a show. If
Yeah.
you don't know a thing, you can have those conversations off air. You can go to a Discord, you can go to an email, you can do something else. Like, you're learning and you're getting it wrong does not, we don't need to see your learning process live, because the things that you do get wrong can get clipped out and sent places, and people can take that as your opinion, or people can take that as a good idea. Like, no, you don't always need to learn on the air. Like, not everything needs to be a show. Like,
Yeah.
your show should be what you want to be disseminated,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
just whatever you
Well,
not just
it,
whatever you think is gonna get
it
views.
it's very much exploiting somebody else's feelings for your content is what
Yeah.
that is,
Oh yeah.
and that's not right. You don't do that to people.
Yeah. So
But
there's like my whole rant is probably like I said, it's a spicier take, more controversial opinion, but
I,
we need to talk
I,
about it.
I'm glad you said those things. I think that was perfect. It's not if it's not the way that you would like, if it's not the way you would sit down and talk to somebody you're just meeting, you know, for the first time in any other setting, why would you make a show out of it? Like, why would you attempt to do that unnatural thing? Like, you're trying to force a subject into stuff. And to me, a lot of times, I mean, some people, I guess, hide it well or whatever, but I think like it's obvious when you're trying to do that. Like, you're trying to make it about something that either a you don't know what the hell you're talking about, or like you're making what's the word, a a show out of it,
Mm.
but not the other show. You're making I can't think of the word. I'm sorry. But
Yeah, and the comments from the transpositions, I'm sure that's Steph posting there. The comment about you're dragging your trans friend in front of a stranger who already thinks negatively of them, expecting them to perform. That's kind of what you're doing when you're asking them to be your little dancing monkey on your show.
yeah,
Like, let them offer, or like defer to their space, but or like have a conversation ahead of time. But just be careful about how things may come across to them. But and then Ember's point too, like, don't be afraid to defer to others, because yeah, like we're not all good at the same things, and
yeah,
we're out of place talking about certain things, and like, it's okay to say, I'm not the right person to answer this question. That's totally, I'd respect somebody more if they said, I'm not the right person, than if they gave a bullshit answer. Like, that's something that we dislike about theists, right? Like, we hate when they just make up answers when they don't know, and then just say that's the best thing we have. Like, no, you don't need to make up the answer. Just say that you don't know, and defer to somebody else who might have a better answer than you.
yeah. Don't be afraid to say, I'm not the best person to answer that. I don't know the answer to that. Like, it's okay to not know everything all the time.
Yeah.
The yeah, I love the way that was that you put that. It was good stuff. The I and I think really taking that back and applying it to the other conversations and stuff though too. Like, it is exactly what theists do in many cases. You've got this, like, I'm going to pretend to know things I don't know anything about, and then act like it's true and base everything on that. Like,
Mhm.
and it's like, yeah, that frustrates the shit out of people that are that have spent a lot of time studying something, or having meaningful conversations, and then you go and just muddy everything up with making a spectacle. That's the word I was looking for a minute ago. By making a spectacle of something that shouldn't be made a spectacle of. I mean, um, like whenever when I was talking about earlier, like how and I'll just use the channel name, hell with it. Standing for Truth and Kent Hovind over there, like they they have all these people come on to these open mic things so that they can sit and say, well, evolution is imagination and all that bullshit. And like, even if they even if they were right about all that stuff being right and everything, it does nothing to defend what they're trying to do and what they're actually doing. And they've places like the ICR has stated forever what they mean to do is to make a spectacle of this, to then convince people that that default position is then the correct one, what they've put forward as the default. So when you play into that and let them make a spectacle of you, that view that the the people that are not followers of yours and not friends of your channel and all that stuff, that view that from the outside looking in is actually doing a lot more work, harm and stuff than it is helping things. And um, perspective, that's the word of the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, I think that uh, going through the going through medical school and doing call-in shows and doing your own channel and all of those things. I mean, I tip my hat to you for. I imagine that was a lot of work to, and so much going on at the same time. So that's a lot of respect for doing all those things. I imagine that's tough. Um, the and the thing with medical school is, which you pointed out earlier too, is you're still doing it. Like you're not like there's not a time when you're like, okay, I know everything about medicine now.
Well, and that's why you specialize too.
Yeah,
Like you've got your narrow subset of information, and like that's the thing too with a lot of the experts. If you're an expert, like you can't really say like you can't really transfer your expertise to other areas, and especially like at a PhD level or doctorate level of anything, your scope is so narrow by that point. Like yeah, you have a lot of in-depth knowledge about that thing, but you narrow what you like the subjects you know every time you get a more advanced degree. So like when experts try to go out and expand into something different, even if it's only slightly different, they're still outside of their wheelhouse, and that's very dishonest. Like we see that with Richard Dawkins and a lot of those people who are like, oh well, I know evolutionary biology. Like okay, but you don't know reproductive biology very well. You don't know medicine very well. Like you're so in your niche. Like you got to focus on what you actually know, and you can't transfer that expertise to something else.
yeah,
Like any physician, like they have a lot of education and they go through a point where they learn a lot of general things, but you're not going to ask like a neurosurgeon what someone should do about their diabetes. That's
right.
ridiculous. Like
That,
you're not even going to ask them to do primary care because they don't know how to do it. They're not
yeah,
trained to do it. They do like they may have done a rotation, like they have done at least one rotation in that like in medical school, but they're so far removed from that, like they don't do that anymore. Like
well,
that is not their job. And so the same thing goes with like academic experts. Like if you're
that's
an
true.
Assyriologist, you should not be talking about World War II. Like, I mean, you can have some thoughts. Like your opinions might be better educated than an average person, but you're not an expert in World War II. It's like even if Kent Hovind had the credentials he claims he does, how does that extend from biology of evolution into medicine, into like history
Mhm.
into biblical studies, how does that translate? It doesn't. So like, be skeptical of people who claim to be experts, because if they're not sticking to their narrow field, like Dr. Josh Bowen does a very good job. He's like, no, I know like the Old Testament. I know this frame of history, like this region of the world, and he sticks to that. And if you've got an expert worth their salt, they're going to let you know where their boundaries are and where they aren't able to help as much. So,
Well, I mean, within the scientific community, like that's a big no-no, right? To like
oh
go
yeah,
and talk outside your lane, like you don't. But for some reason, in other stuff like as the Christian conversations, the theism conversations, it's like Answers in Genesis has built their whole thing on publicizing anybody with the name doctor on anything they say about any subject. Like,
yeah,
well, Doctor So and So said this about geology. Oh, what are they a doctor in? Oh, okay. That like
yeah,
they're not a doctor in that thing at all. Like, who cares? And that's one of the mistakes too. Like, whenever when we have those kind of conversations and we talk about what um, what biblical scholars say about things. That's There's a big misunderstanding about how to use that source, like that reference source, because you say like, well, this biblical scholar thinks this, and it's like, first of all, even within that, there's narrow fields where it's like I'm an Old Testament, you know, scholar in this area or whatever. But even aside from that, like I don't want your like you look to the scholar to tell you about the text. It's a biblical scholar about the text, not about what they believe about some other thing. There's a lot of that. YouTube seems to be ate up with that, not just in this area, but lots of others. There's if you have doctor in front of your name, no matter how you get it there, it's like that. People tend to fall for that, meaning you can talk about whatever. My first question is always, anytime somebody says they're like an expert or has doctor, like, what are you a doctor of? In fact, it was the first question I asked you. What kind of doctoring do you do, man? Like the
yeah.
it's that's important. It depends a lot on what kind of things that person is a decent source for to have to ask those questions. Like,
Yeah, and if they're an academic doctor, it's like, what is your research in? Like, what are your publications in? Because it's like that's what their focus is.
yeah,
And a majority of PhDs will be happy to tell you about their research. They put blood, sweat, and tears into that research, and they will tell you about it.
right.
If they hesitate to tell, skeptical, because they might have gone to a degree mill like Ken Hovind.
Yeah, yeah. I think that something, and I know that they shut a lot of those places down eventually and stuff that do that, but I mean, I think that there should be higher consequences for people that do that,
Oh yeah.
not just in the medical field, right? Like,
Mhm.
if you go along using doctor, a term that people work really hard to get in front of their name, if you go around misrepresenting yourself as that, I think there should be heavier consequences to that than just like, oh, no, you're not.
Yeah.
uh, the in if it was in the medical field, I mean, you face charges for that kind of stuff. But uh, I mean, I just think there should be heavier consequences, even if you're pretending to be some
Mhm.
academic that you're not,
Yeah.
because you've that would put a stop to anybody wanting to go to diploma mills, to pay these diploma mills to just get a piece of paper that says they're a doctor
Yeah.
for no reason. But
Yeah, and this is why, if you're looking to get a degree, like, make sure that it is accredited and not accredited internally, like, not that they accredit themselves, because there's some places that claim to do that, but like, find out for your like the degree that you're looking into doing, like whatever field that is, look at what the governing body is like for accreditation, and make sure that it is like verifiable and that you're getting the degree that you want to be getting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that with the guy we covered last night, that was the thing I said. I said, where did he go to school to get his degree, and is that accredited? That those were, those are my first questions whenever it comes to that stuff. And again, like you said, uh, an academic doctor who has studied that stuff and been publicized and everything to get that doctorate in that area is usually more than happy to lay those credentials out and talk about what their studies are in, and when they're not, it's like you should be asking those questions. You shouldn't just go in trusting that, oh, they have doctor in front of their name, they must know everything.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I find that funny, but I guess it happens quite often. Uh, so I guess where are we at here? We're almost an hour and a half in. I guess we can start. Let's start heading towards the end here.
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Well, you do you do trivia night stuff, like, or game night, a certain night of the week every week, or?
Yeah, it's Friday nights at 9:30 Eastern time. 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. So, yeah, it's I keep wanting to get back to like trivia, but I haven't had as many people recently because with the holidays and stuff. So we'll have like actual trivia when we get more people there. Otherwise, we'll play Jackbox. We'll hang out. We'll do whatever. We'll still have fun. The whole thing is just let loose and have fun. Um, so we do that every Friday.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's always fun to, like, that was one of the reasons that we had that on this channel when we did. I say we because there's a number of people that I confer with behind the scenes to try and figure things out and do entertaining stuff. But that was one of the things that was great about it, because it was like, we're not everybody's welcome, and we're going to just have fun, and we're not going to get into these serious conversations about anything. Let's just have a fun night and play games and whatever. And it was going well or whatever. I had to make some changes in my channel a while back. I used to have a co-host. The But I had to change some stuff and things, and so that was one of the things that went away as a result of all that. But people have asked for me to do some kind of fun game night or something again or whatever, and we can go play games with Ben. We don't have to. Not everybody has to have a game night. The
Yeah.
Definitely,
No, but you can if
but
you want to. I'd say like if you're gonna copy something, like just having fun. I mean, nobody can own that. So like, have
no,
fun if you
no,
want to.
sure. For sure, playing games is kind
Yeah.
of, everybody's welcome to play games. The uh well, I mean, it's just, I get I try to, how to put this, I try to take on a whole lot of stuff anyway, so like, um and also I have young kids that I put to bed every night, and so it's kind of difficult for me to do things late in the evening and stuff. I don't usually do any shows at night, and if I was going to do that, I'd want to do it kind of later rather than earlier. I don't want to do it while everybody's at work. Uh, so, like, there's just a number of problems with doing it, and that's why I stopped. And but the I have played on the channel Skeptic Spin with Justin. What was there was a game we played that was kind of like Jack in the Box trivia stuff,
Mhm.
or Jackbox trivia stuff. but that's not what it was. It was something about words. Uh, I don't remember what it was called, but it was like that, and you made like captions for things, and then the audience voted on what was funny and stuff like that. And we had a lot of fun doing that. It was a blast. So yeah, doing those things is always a lot of fun. I miss getting to play and do those things. So maybe I'll try and I'll try and make it a point to come have fun.
Yeah,
Um,
come join us.
I get I get busy with so many things that then whenever I'm away from the computer and YouTube, like I'm completely away from it. I don't like I take time and don't even think about it on purpose in any aspect. But the I really appreciate you coming and hanging out. I know again that's not just with your job and shows and everything that you're busy, and so I appreciate you coming and talking to me about whatever for an hour and a half. It's not always an easy thing to do, so I appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I really do enjoy your sense of humor is one of a kind. It's I think you're funny, and I love that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of channels that don't care to to just have a sense of humor about stuff and quit taking themselves so seriously all the damn time. Like there's a channel in atheist content, the Shaken Fist. He was in chat there, but Zach, he talks about a lot of those apologetics issues and stuff like that. He talks about those things, but incredibly funny. Just the way that he does it. I love channels that add a bit of comedy and stuff into it, and I think you do that well, which is awesome. Um, let's see, where'd that go? Pinworm, hey Joe and Dr. Ben, $2 super chat. Thanks, Pinworm. Good to see you. Um, thanks for the $2 super chat, Pinworm. But you can catch Dr. Ben over on his channel and um, on the line doing any number of things. Do you still how? I haven't seen you on the Transatlantic Call-In show recently. Have you not been doing that as much,
Oh
or?
no, I was on. When was the last time I was on? Last time I was on it was of course like during the holidays, but
Well, yeah, it's been a kind of busy time.
uh it was at the end of December. Yeah, I was there right after Christmas. That was the last time I
Oh,
was on. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We the after the 48-hour Christmas thing, um, I didn't I didn't watch anything for a couple
That's
days.
fair. Yeah, that was long.
But yeah, so you can catch Dr. Ben doing all those things, and please go subscribe and stuff. Again, linked in the YouTube title and the description, and one more time, there it is on screen. And I appreciate everybody coming to watch us talk and to take part in the conversation and everything. Always a fun time. I love the Sunday shows, having guests on to just ramble on about whatever for an hour or so. Um, but you got anything else you want to put in there before we get out of here?
No, thanks for having me. It was a great time.
Well, no, it's my pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time to do it. Um, I think I've subbed to Ben's many channels. Great content that varies. Yeah, yeah. Um, everybody should go do that. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Have a great one. See you later. Goodbye.